I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. My guest this week is Tommy Means.
Cannabis poses a great deal of challenges like that. You can't say the word, you can't show the product, so you got to really sort of lean into things like metaphor. I have a saying all the time that I tell my clients, brands have to be brick to forehead clear about what it is they're advertising.
Tommy Means is a founding partner and chief creative officer at Mekanism, a creative advertising agency with offices in San Francisco, New York, and Seattle. Under his creative leadership, Mekanism has been named a top 10 most effective independent agency in the U.S. by the Effie Index and Independent Agency of the Year by The Drum. In his nearly 20 years in the industry, he has created award-winning campaigns for brands including Molson Coors, Nike, Apple, The North Face, Pepsi, Disney, and 20th Century Fox. Tommy won a Cannes Lion for creating one of the first cannabis commercials with Academy Award-winning director Spike Jonze. My interview with Tommy Means is coming right up, but first.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure. I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Would you wear the same shoes for every occasion? Or rock the same outfit 7 days a week? Of course not. Your style is better with options. Your investments could be too. Cboe Index options give you access to various contract sizes, global trading hours, and potential tax advantages. That's a good look for any portfolio. If you're ready to invest in style, head to betterwithoptions.com. There are risks associated with Cboe Company products. Review the disclosures and disclaimers at cboe.com/US_disclaimers.
Tommy Means, welcome to On Brand.
Thanks for having me, Nick. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited to chat. When we look at your work, it is all about award-winning creative, but it's really creative that pushes a lot of boundaries. And I wanted to jump right in with your work on one of the first cannabis commercials, because this is a space that, even as I say that phrase, cannabis commercial, it sounds like something that I personally have not seen. So this is a space that we're talking more and more about, and yet how we talk about it is a bit of a struggle. So how did you approach that challenge in your work?
Well, I think it's curious that when you say you never hear the word cannabis commercial. I think the word cannabis is, not really used in our everyday language when it comes to marketing. And that was actually the essence of the brief that we got. The client was MedMen, who was at one time California's largest cannabis retailer. And the very first sentence in the brief was, we want to make the world's first cannabis commercial on television. But the challenge was we couldn't say the word cannabis in the commercial, and we couldn't show it. So imagine being a creative and you've just been handed this brief. You can't say the name of the product. You can't show it. What do you do? And so the team got together, and I was like, how do we get inside the living rooms of America in a way that's a little bit subversive? And somebody on our team said, George Washington had a hemp farm What if we were to tell the history of cannabis through the eyes of George Washington? And that's exactly what we did. We opened on the spot with George Washington holding up a hemp leaf, and the folks that approved these spots at the networks were like, well, they're not showing cannabis, they're not saying it, so I guess we're in here. So it was a really interesting challenge on a lot of different levels. Creatively, from a media perspective, buying media that doesn't get exposed to anybody under 21 years old was a challenge. So we were definitely breaking new ground with that campaign.
So, without putting you on the spot and making you have to speak for the regulatory aspect, where does this fall, cannabis, in terms of rules to observe in developing creative?
It falls in the most regulated space. I've done plenty of work in the beer and spirits category.
Right.
And if you ever watch a beer commercial, you may not know this, but you never see anybody drinking a beer in a beer ad. You never see anybody putting a glass of tequila up to their lips. So this is even more regulated than that. And like I said, you can't say the word, you can't show the product, so you got to really sort of lean into things like metaphors. And I have a saying all the time that I tell my clients, brands have to be brick to forehead clear about what it is they're advertising, and cannabis poses a great deal of challenges like that.
I would file that under today I learned, and then here I'm sitting here as you talk about beer and spirits ads, kind of rewinding in my head, and yeah, everybody is holding the drink but not actually consuming it. So, and to hear that it's even more regulated than that. So you talk about metaphor, and I think that that's fascinating. So what does, as your, beyond the kind of George Washington scenario and context of it all, what do you look for in creatively conveying what are ultimately product benefits?
For cannabis or any product in general?
Well, let's start with cannabis, and then we can.
Yeah, for cannabis, you certainly can't say that it's going to get you high, um, even though that's why everybody buys it. I think you certainly can't convey that it has any medicinal benefits, which I think it does. I think that what we did with MedMen, because it was the first brand campaign of its time, we wanted to break the taboo of buying cannabis. I think that our client MedMen really struggled with, particularly getting women into their retail stores. Because if you think about the history of cannabis, when you buy it, it was bought in, dark alleys with a quote unquote drug dealer. And
Right.
so, when cannabis was made legal, it was a massive shift in the consumer mindset. And still, people sort of didn't feel very comfortable walking out of a cannabis retailer. So, our challenge wasn't so much to advertise the benefits of the product, it was more about saying this is the new normal. It is okay to walk into a retailer and buy cannabis. So we really almost had to advertise the category much more than we had to advertise the product itself.
Well, that's really what it makes me think of, is that this is one of those unique kind of moments where through the work, are creating what are the new perceptions of an industry, but also in this case, because it's not just starting from a blank page. It's starting from a page with, like you said, some preconceived notions on safety to overcome as well. So a real challenge for pioneers in this work. And now I feel like I kind of at least in terms of even CBD and gummies, I feel like my Instagram feed is trying to tell me something, because I feel like I'm seeing it everywhere, more and more. But it is an interesting time for what's ultimately a kind of an emerging category.
Well, Nick, it sounds like the algorithms have really keyed into your lifestyle.
Yes, or we'll say that, or there's some sort of metaphor that they've hooked into on the stressful life of a marketer that could gain some sort of benefit for as much as they could maybe hint at or kind of sort of say. Which, as I talk about, I laugh, but that's really what the challenge is.
Yeah, kind of, sort of say it. That's exactly right.
Kind of sort of say it. Oh, so beyond the cannabis side of your work, again, award-winning creative campaigns for some of the biggest, brightest brands out there. As you look at your work,
Mhm.
what is beyond what we've just been talking about in these strange, challenging times? What is a creative win that you are proud of and that you find yourself pointing to a lot?
God, that's a great question because I work on so many different brands and I'm constantly looking at a blank sheet of paper. I mean, if any day, if you can do breakthrough work and have a happy client, that's a win. Um, I think one of the campaigns that I'm most proud of was for the North Face. At the North Face, at the time, the North Face had just come out with this campaign called Never Stop Exploring. And they really needed to speak to a very different audience that they were accustomed to when we were developing this campaign. They traditionally talk to climbers going up to the top of Everest. They talk to skiers. They talk to hardcore outdoor enthusiasts. But if you look at the North Face's business, their CMO had a real challenge in that. Sure, they sold tents and sleeping bags, a lot of ski wear, things like that. But $1 billion of their business were moms buying jackets for back to school. And so their challenge was, how do we sell, $1 billion worth of puffer jackets to soccer moms while at the same time staying authentic to these hardcore climbers, skiers, outdoor enthusiasts. When they look at the advertising, when the guy that climbs Everest looks at the advertising, he says, yeah, that's my North Face. So speaking to a broader audience for this brand was a huge challenge. And, in terms of our creative process, we really, really like to just start with a truth. And I challenge our creatives to sit down and just write. I don't care about looking at ideas. I really care about truths. Because when you start with the truth, nobody can take it away from you. No other brand, no consumer can take that truth away from you. So what is inherently true about the North Face? And the North Face started in Berkeley in the late 60s. They started in a great time of social upheaval, which a lot of folks don't know about. And I looked at an old photo of the North Face's first retail outlet that was in the North Beach in San Francisco. And in the retail window, they had a picture of Bob Dylan. And I thought that was so fascinating, just speaking to the ethos of this brand. They were a counterculture brand. So I started thinking about Bob Dylan, and I started watching old films of, climbers in the 60s and 70s, scaling the sides of cliffs in Yosemite Valley. And I saw this old film of one of the North Face's sponsored climbers, and he was whistling as he was 2,000 feet above the ground on the side of a cliff. And I thought about it, and I was like, what is he whistling? The guy is so at ease on the edge of this cliff that he's whistling. And I thought to myself, what song would that be? And it came to us, and we were like, whistle, is it Whistle While You Work? Something like that. And then it was like, This Land Is Your Land. What if he was whistling This Land Is Your Land? Which was obviously a Woody Guthrie song, but it was also covered by Bob Dylan. So we just came up with this really simple idea of having that song play, This Land Is Your Land, while you're seeing just extreme footage of these climbers and skiers and kayakers getting after it in America. And it gave the audience, I think, goosebumps to think that this land is your land. Never stop exploring. So I think that was a campaign that I'm probably most proud of, because it was so true. It was such a true take on a great American brand.
On Brand will be right back after this.
My dad works in B2B marketing, but I never really knew what that meant. Then one day my dad came by my school for career day and told everyone in my class he was a big ROAS man. Then he just kept saying things like, the bigger the ROAS, the better, over and over. My friends still laugh at me to this day. I think it means calculating a return on ad spend. One thing's for sure, I'll be known as the ROAS man's kid for the rest of my days. Why couldn't you just be a fireman or a lawyer? Why? You ruined my life, Dad.
Not everyone gets B2B, but LinkedIn has the people who do. And with ads on LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people based on job title, industry, likelihood to buy, and more. Start converting your B2B audience into high-quality leads today. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/MPN to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/MPN. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Now, back to the show. So we're talking about true takes on a great American brand, and I love that North Face story, but I also feel like the kind of root question, truth in there that you were able to uncover is a challenge that presents itself to a lot of brands, where we have a core customer who loves us because the true climbers out there. But then you've got and it's ultimately a success, but if you're not careful, the brand can kind of get away from you. So how do you describe finding that common denominator truth that unites both soccer moms buying puffer coats and climbers? How do you express that beyond that creative? Is there some sort of centering mantra to the work?
Well, what we call what we do at Mekanism is soul and science. And so the phrasing of finding a brand truth, we call it the soul of the brand. And that is really what makes the consumer's heart beat faster, is finding that essence, that truth, really sort of bringing to life those consistent brand behaviors that consumers have interacted with. So we call that identifying the soul of the brand. The science is then, okay, how do we tell that soulful story of this brand at the right time, at the right place, and refine it, and make that story perform. And so it really goes back to when identifying the soul is leaning into the truth of these brands. And again, nobody can take that truth away from you. And once you identify that truth, I think brands really have to break some rules to break through. Once they find that truth, they have to tell that truth in a way that's so unexpected, that's so breakthrough, that a consumer can't help but notice. And I have this exercise that I take brands through, and it's called breaking the rules to break through. And so, say a brand like McDonald's, they have these rules that they have to play by. They have to show the burger on the grill. They have to show a family friendly environment. They have to show the bite and smile. They have to show the golden arches. And a lot of times these brands become so beholden to these rules that they just can't break through anymore. So if a brand were to break one rule, and we don't ask them to break all the rules, but if they were to break one rule, then you think about that brand differently. The brand shows up in a way that's completely unexpected. And I think that's the thing that excites me about brands that do show up in ways that are unexpected. They're breaking a rule. And I really applaud the marketers that have, the bold vision and the discipline to be able to do that.
As we talk about breaking through, and as this episode airs, we are at the beginning of a new year, and a new year that has a lot of uncertainty with it. And I think that challenge of breakthrough is increasingly a moving target. So as we look to the new year ahead, what are your team, on behalf of your clients, thinking about?
Well, what you're saying about uncertainty, I think, is spot on. And I think uncertainty really informs how marketers behave. I think in uncertain times, it's very difficult to get marketers to do bold work. And I think that, in uncertain times, and this is just a fundamental human truth, nobody wants to lose their job. And the more that marketers stick their necks out, the more that, the consequences are for not, nailing a creative campaign. So I think in this, in these uncertain times, marketers really want to play it safe. I think they really are depending on data to ensure and guarantee that whatever campaigns they put out in the world perform. And it creates very, very tight guardrails for brands to earn media. And I think brands earning media and becoming a part of the cultural conversation is everything. I think that, consumers, particularly Zillennials, have grown up with a skip button in front of their face every time they see an ad. And so I think marketers have to depend less and less on the paid 30, the paid 15, the paid 6, the paid digital, the paid social, and they need to start behaving their purpose. And so what I mean by behaving their purpose is, how do brands show up outside of their media buy to make an impact? And I think probably the one brand that is really doing a fantastic job, that has really taken on an iconic status, is Liquid Death. And this is a brand that, at its essence is water. It's canned water. And they have created, they have rewritten the book on how to advertise and market a commodity. And they've done it by, showing up in a way that is so unexpected and so bold. I'm constantly looking forward to, the next thing they do, doing unexpected partnerships with people like Martha Stewart, coming out with crazy products. They just came out with a diaper, a leather diaper that you wear so you don't have to go to the bathroom at heavy metal shows. It's a brand that just gets people talking. So, and they're selling water. So I think that brand behavior in 2025, what we call acts, not ads. It's how a brand acts, and then using the advertising to remind consumers of how you behave as a brand. I think those are the brands that are going to win in 2025.
I love it, and definitely makes me smile, as did this whole conversation, which reminds me that it is now my turn, Tommy, to get to ask you for a brand that has made you smile recently.
I love that question. There's so many brands out there that that are talk worthy and showing up and doing really interesting work. I really love brands who have identified their purpose, like we talk about, and they live that purpose in a really, really consistent way. I think one of the brands that is doing great work right now is Airbnb. And I think Airbnb is, they know exactly who they are. They know exactly what they offer, and they know exactly what the single-minded emotion that they want their consumer to feel at every single touch point with this brand. They've identified their brand purpose as belong anywhere, which I love. I think the experience of staying in an Airbnb is so different than staying in a hotel. You really do feel like you're a part of the local community where you stay. So I think, that truth of belonging anywhere is absolutely dead on for that brand. And the way that they show up, they recently did a piece of work last year during the whole Barbie movie phenomenon, where they created a Barbie Malibu house that you can actually rent. It was a real house in Malibu that you can, stay at. And it just so perfectly nailed the experience at any Airbnb can be completely different and unexpected, yet you feel this sense of belonging. And doing an unexpected partnership with the Barbie movie, I thought was chef's kiss.
Love it. That is a great example and definitely full of smiles as well. Tommy, where could folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
They can go to Mekanism.com. And since we're in the audio land, you have to spell Mekanism with a K, not a CH. When I started Mekanism, I really wanted to call the company Mekanism with the CH, but MekanismCH.com wasn't available. So I spelled it Mekanism with a K.com, which was available. And it's kind of haunted me the rest of my life.
Well, we are in the audio world, so we'll make it even easier and link up to all of that in our show notes, which folks can find at onbrandpodcast.com, spelled exactly how you might think. So you can, of course, find all of that and more as well. Tommy, thanks for being on brand with us.
Thanks for having me, Nick. This has been a great talk.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.